Hey guys, it's Avery Carl with the Short Term Shop, and today I am going to give you 5 questions that most investors don't think to ask when investing in the Smoky Mountains. Let's get started. Number 1, make sure you ask how many bedrooms the septic permit is for. In this area, there weren't a lot of building codes surrounding septics until the early 2000s probably, so it's very, very common for septics to be undersized for the property. Generally, it's not a huge deal if it's within 1 to 2 bedroom numbers. And by the way, the septics are based on number of bedrooms, not number of bathrooms, because the bedrooms determine how many people are going to be using the septic system. So just make sure that you ask that question when you're looking at these things. We do have to list the properties by the number of bedrooms the septic permit is for, rather than how many bedrooms the property actually has. So if it's a 5-bedroom but it's on a 3-bedroom septic, it will be listed in the MLS, or should be if it's listed properly, as a 3-bedroom. It's generally okay if the property is within 1 or 2 bedrooms of the septic size, but you most definitely want to get a septic inspection to check that out for sure if your septic system is undersized for the property. Number 2, is the well shared? 85% of properties in this market are going to be on a well and a septic system. Very few are on city water and city sewer, so most of the properties are going to be on a well. It's very common for properties to share wells, so you might be sharing a well with a few neighbors. You definitely want to ask and make sure that ask for the shared well agreement. A lot of times your agent might not have access to this, but the title company always will. So if your agent doesn't, definitely ask your title company to pull the shared well agreement. If there's not one and you do have a shared well, you definitely want to make sure there is one in place before you close, because the shared well agreements lay out who is responsible for what. They also lay out that everybody is equally responsible financially if something happens with the well, if you need to dig a new one, if it needs a new pump, maintenance, etc. You just want to make sure that you're legally in line and taken care of with the shared well agreements. Number 3, zoning and HOA restrictions. Luckily, the Smoky Mountains are one of the most friendly markets for short-term rentals, and 99.9% of the properties are going to have no problem. You're not going to run into any problems with zoning. However, there are 2 zonings to watch out for. One is in the city limits of Pigeon Forge. So inside the city limits of Pigeon Forge, if the property is zoned R1, it is not short-term rental legal. You have to be very careful with this, because a lot of times properties that are zoned R1 will be listed as having been rentals previously. The city has started cracking down as of the past year. You could try to skirt the rules. I don't recommend that at all. So I would just recommend staying away from R1, even if it has been a rental in the past. Just because someone else is breaking the rules does not mean that you need to do that as well. The second zoning is only inside the Gatlinburg city limits. It is called R1A. So same thing, if you're inside the Gatlinburg city limits, R1A is off limits for short-term rentals. These zonings exist to protect some affordable housing for the people who actually live here. So you want to stay definitely far away from those zonings. And there are just a few HOAs that don't allow short-term rentals. Most of the communities here were developed specifically to be resort-style communities and to have short-term rentals. But again, there are a few that they want to stick to just being properties that are owned and lived in as a primary residence by people who live here. So again, to recap, R1 in Pigeon Forge and R1A in Gatlinburg are the 2 big no-nos. Beyond that, just make sure you ask about whatever community you're in. Make sure you ask for the HOA docs and the rules to make sure that you are buying in a place that does allow self-management. Number 4, access roads. The number 1 thing you want to look out for is how steep is the access road. I call it the Prius test. If a Prius can make it up the road without having a problem, then it's not too steep. However, if it is kind of steep, you just want to make sure that in your Airbnb and VRBO listings that you set that expectation with your guests. Don't let them be surprised by it when they get there. So make sure it passes the Prius test, and then B, make sure that if it's a private road and not maintained by the county, that you do get a copy of the shared road agreement. If it's a private road, all of the owners who own the property on that road will be responsible equally for the maintenance of the road. So you want to make sure that there's a good agreement in place, laying out everyone's responsibilities, making sure that everyone does have a legally binding agreement that they're legally bound by the agreement, to participate in any maintenance. Number 5, and this is kind of a big one. You always want to make sure that if your property has been a previous short-term rental and has been managed on a local rental company, that there are no requirements that the property stay with the management company for any period of time after closing. There are two major rental companies out here that have very long requirements after closing. Dollywood is one. Dollywood Cabins will make you stay with them for 6 months after closing. They are very serious about that. I have seen them take legal action in the past, so just be aware of that. Same thing with Aunt Bug's Cabin Rentals. They, I think, require 1 year. So if you want to buy a property that are on either one of these cabin rental companies, you have to be prepared to leave it on their program for the number of specified months. Most property managers are not going to have any kind of requirement. Every now and then you'll run into a 30-day requirement if it's, in the summertime and they don't have, or maybe the holidays, and they don't have anywhere to move the guests to. But most of the companies are going to be pretty negotiable. Dollywood and Aunt Bug's are not, so keep an eye out on that. But you always want to make sure, if it's been a previous short-term rental, that you're asking if there are any requirements to stay with the current management company. Okay, that about does it for my 5 questions to make sure you ask when shopping for a short-term rental in the Smoky Mountains. If you need help shopping for a short-term rental, we are agents here at the Short-Term Shop. Everyone on the team owns and manages their own short-term rentals. We're here to help you choose the right short-term rental and teach you how to manage it so that you don't have to pay a manager 20%. If you use us as your agents, that's 100% complimentary. We will get you to the finish line of your closing, ready to rock and make money right out of the gate. Give us a call.